the observation deck of Research Station APL, and smelled like burnt ozone and regret. Commander Vexith stood with Foroff, his upper appendages crossed, watching the replay for the 8th time, and still the numbers refused to make sense. "Run it again," he said. "Sir, we've analyzed this 17 times. Lieutenant Korn's translator chip gave her voice a ready quality that matched her exasperation perfectly. "The result doesn't change. Then the equipment is faulty." "The equipment," Korn said slowly, as though explaining orbital mechanics to a larva, "was calibrated this morning by 3 separate teams using 4 different methodologies." Vex's primary eyes narrowed. His secondary eyes stayed fixed on the screen where a palm-sized rectangle of Vidian steel sat in the testing rig, completely intact. The timestamp read 1447-22 at 144,723. The metal shattered, not bent, not deformed. Shattered like glass, like ceramic, like something that had absolutely no business calling itself the most durable substance ever. The fracture that shouldn't exist, synthesized by carbon-based life. The pressure applied was Vexith gestured at, the data stream flowing down the left side of the display. 62% of theoretical maximum, Korn finished. "We know. Everyone knows. The entire station knows because you've been broadcasting this to every department head for the past 4 hours." Behind them, someone coughed. Vexith turned to find Dr. Milinth, the station's senior metallurgist, standing in the doorway. The Rithyon looked like had aged a decade since breakfast. "Tell me you found something," Vexith said. Milinth's gill slits fluttered. "I found several things. None of them helpful. The molecular structure of the sample shows no signs of fatigue, no microfractures, no crystal integration. The atomic bonds didn't weaken. They just stopped. Bonds don't just stop." "I'm aware." Milinth moved to the display and pulled up a secondary analysis. "Which is why I've spent 6 hours confirming that everything we know about material science still applies to the rest of the universe, just not apparently to this specific test at this specific time." Korn leaned against the bulkhead. "So we're back to equipment failure." "The equipment is fine." Then Sumia Nessa bogged the sample. The sample was logged, sealed, and monitored from the moment it left fabrication. Milinth's gills flared wider. "Besides, you can't sabotage Vidian steel. That's the entire point of Vidian steel. You could hit it with a minning charge and only scratch the paint." Vexith felt a headache forming in his frontal lobe. "Walk me through the test parameters one more time." Milinth sighed, but complied. Standard tensile strength evaluation. The sample was placed in the compression rig. Chamber sealed. Atmosphere normalized to station standard. Temperature held at 21. Pressure applied gradually over a 90-second window. At 62% maximum load, the sample experienced catastrophic structural failure. And the only personnel in the chamber, tech crew, cleared out 30 seconds before the test began. Standard protocol. Korn straightened. "Wait, check the access logs." Milinth pulled up the data. His eyes tracked across the screen, then stopped. Oh, Vexith repeated. "Oh" is not a word I want to hear right now. "There was Simeon in the chamber." Milinth highlighted a time stamp. 1447 right before the test. "Who? Technician? Kale? The human?" The silence that followed had weight. Vexith's translator chip made a small clicking. Sound as though it too was struggling with this. Information, the human was in the testing chamber for approximately 40 seconds. Yes. Doing what? Milinth scrolled through the log. According to this, she was checking calibration on the secondary sensors. Signed off at 14:46 and 51 seconds. Left chamber, sealed the door. Test began 22 seconds later. Kay made a sound that might have been a laugh. "You're not suggesting a human broke a Vidian steel." "I'm not suggesting anything," Milan said. "I'm reporting facts. The fact that a human happened to be nearby when a statistically impossible event occurred. Coincidence?" Vexith said, but he didn't sound convinced. Milan pulled up the security footage. The camera angle showed the testing chamber from above. Wide angle covering the entire space. At 144,633, the door cycled open. Kyle entered, average height for a human. Dark hair pulled back in what the species called a ponytail. Wearing standard station coveralls, she moved to the sensor array on the eastern wall, ran a handheld scanner across the panel, nodded to herself. Then as she turned to leave, she paused, reached out, touched the Vidian steel sample. Just her fingertips, just for a moment. Then she withdrew her hand, exited the chamber, and sealed the door. "Replay that," Vexus said quietly. Milanth did. They watched Kyle touch the metal again. Her expression was completely neutral, bored. Even the kind of face someone made when performing routine maintenances he had done 1,000 times before. "Is there audio?" Corin asked. Milanth enabled it. The sound of Kyle's breathing filled the observation deck. The soft beep of her scanner, her footsteps. Then, just barely audible, she muttered something under her breath. "What did she say?" Vexith leaned closer. Milanth isolated the audio and amplified it. Kyle's voice merged, tiny but clear. "Huh, cold." That was it. The entire commentary. "Huh, cold." She touched a sample of the galaxy's most indestructible alloy, noted its temperature, and left. 22 seconds later, the metal exploded. Kay broke the silence. "I'll pull her personnel file." "Do that," Vexith said. His headache was getting worse. "And someone find me a xenobiologist who specializes in humans, sir." Milanth's gills had gone pale. "With respect, humans have been part of the galactic community for 30 years. If they could break Vidian steel by touching it, we would have noticed." "You'd think so," Vexith said. And yet, gestured at the screen where the shattered fragments of impossible metal glittered under the chamber's harsh lighting. The timestamp frozen at 144,723. The moment the galaxy's strongest substance decided to give up, all because a human technician had found it cold. Vexith pulled up the station's directory and began composing a very uncomfortable message to command. He had no idea how to phrase. "We need to investigate whether humans are aerostructurally dangerous to advanced materials without sounding deranged." But he'd been in command long enough to know one thing with absolute certainty. When something impossible happened once, it was about to happen again. Dr. Theseus arrived on Station A-Plan 3 days later, and the first thing she did was request coffee. "I don't drink it," she clarified, watching Vex's confusion with what might have been amusement. "But I've learned that humans become significantly more cooperative when you share their stimulants. Social lubricant, you understand." Vexith did not understand. Quarrens were not known for their social graces. They were known for their ability to calculate molecular bonds in their heads, and their disconcerting of laughing at funerals. "The human is in Lab 7, he said. "She's been cooperative." Confused, but cooperative. Of course she's confused. The breathing apparatus clipped to her throat. Station atmosphere was too oxygeneric for her species, but she'd refused the environmental suit. She has no idea what she did. That's the interesting part. They walked through the station's central corridor. Crew members stepped aside when they saw the approaching. Quarians had a reputation. "I read your initial report." This continued. "She analyzes. Equipment calibration verified by 3 teams. Molecular examination showing 0 structural compromise prior to failure. Very thorough. Very pointless." Pointless. "You were looking for conventional explanations. There aren't any." She stopped at an observation window vor, looking the cargo bay. Down below, a human dock worker was guiding a shipment off precision instruments into storage. Standard procedure, completely mundane. "Tell me, Commander, what do you know about human biology?" "They're carbon-based oxygen breathers, moderate temperature tolerance, omnivorous diet, standard bilateral symmetry. Everything you just said is technically accurate and functionally useless." Thus resumed walking. "Let me ask differently. Have you ever wondered why humans have such strange medical requirements?" Vex's shoulder plates shifted. "They request artificial gravity settings that seem unnecessarily specific." N8 standard. Yes. Do you know why? Their homeworld's gravity, presumably their homeworld's gravity, is well within normal parameters for class and planets. The specificity isn't about gravity's strength. It's about constancy. Thes's voice carried that particular tone academics used when they were enjoying themselves. Too much, human bodies don't adapt well to variation. They need consistency, routine. Their entire physiology is built around predictable stress. They reached Lab 7. Through the window, Kale sat at a table drinking something from a thermal container. She looked bored. Strange discoveries begin. She doesn't look dangerous, Vexith observed. No, Thea agreed. She doesn't. That was when she started laughing. Not a chuckle, not a polite expression of humor, a full, deep, genuinely delighted laugh that made Vexith's primary stomach clench. Quans only laughed at things that were legitimately horrifying. Doctor, he ventured. Thes wiped her eyes with one membranous hand. Apologies, professional reflex. Shall. We inside the lab, Kale looked up as they entered. Her expression flickered through, confusion, weariness, then settled on polite neutrality. Technician Kale, Thes said. I'm Dr. Thesis. I study why things break. Well, apparently are very good at making that happen. I really don't think I did anything, Kale said. I touched a piece off metal. That's it. May I see your hand? Kale extended her right hand, palm up, to produce a scanning device and passed it slowly over the skin. Numbers scrolled across the display. Her expression didn't change, but her breathing apparatus clicked faster. Fascinating. She murmured, What's fascinating? Vexith asked. Her electrical potential. It's fluctuating. Not wildly, but constantly, like static discharge, except it never fully dissipates. These's eyes looked up at Kyle. Do you experience frequent electric shocks, touching door panels, equipment casings? Sometimes, Kale admitted. It's worse when I'm tired. And 3 days ago, during your shift. Were you tired? I'd been on for 9 hours, so yeah. The made annotation on her data pad. Have you eaten today? Ah, breakfast. Describe breakfast. Kyle blinked. Toast synthesized protein. The orange juicethet tastes slightly wrong. Citrus derivative, likely vitamin C supplemented. Standard human requirements. The circled Kyle slowly, still scanning. Tell me about your family medical history. Is this relevant? Extremely. Kyle shifted uncomfortably. I don't know much. Mom had anemia when she was younger. Dad's side has some joint issues. Typical human stuff, I guess. Anemia, the repeated iron deficiency. That's what she said. And the joint issues, arthritis, degradation, early onset? Yeah. Dad's knees started going bad when he was 40. The stop stopped circling. She looked at Vexith. I need full access to human medical databases, historical records, evolutionary biology, comparative physiology, everything that will take time to authorize. Then authorize it quickly. Her breathing apparatus clicked 3 times in rapid succession. Because I'm starting to understand what happened to your Vidian steel, and you're not going to like it. Kyle raised her hand like a student. Can someone explain what's happening? Your species, this said slowly, is structurally absurd. That's what's happening. Excuse me. Vexith's translator chip struggled with Thes's next words, which were in academic Koran. It eventually settled on, Commander, I need to run a calcium density scan, also bone marrow analysis, also a full nervous system mapping. You want to scan her entire skeletal structure? I want to confirm a hypothesis. If I'm correct, humans aren't just unusual, they're impossible. Kyle stood up. Okay, I'm getting concerned now. Don't be. Tessa's voice was cheerful. Well, Be a Little Dearth arrives and starts laughing concerned, but not about the scans. Those are harmless. Be concerned about what the scans will show, which is that you're held together by a biological system that shouldn't work. Thus pull it up a holographic display. Every species in the galactic community evolved stable molecular structures. Calcium that stays calcium, iron that stays sequestered in appropriate cells, electrical systems that maintain equilibrium. You apparently did not. Kyle looked at Vexith. Is she always like this? I have no idea, Vexith admitted. Doctor, please speak plainly. The deactivated the hologram. Fine, plain language. Technician Kale, your body produces an electromagnet field. This is normal for most species. However, your field is irregular, unstable. It creates localized distortions in probability matrices at the quantum level. When you touched Thavidian steel, you didn't apply force. You introduced uncertainty into a system designate to have none. Silence. I broke the metal by being unlucky, Kyle said slowly. You broke the metal by existing near it while tired and slightly malnourished. The smiled, which was unsettling because Quarrens had too many teeth. The real question is how often this happens without anyone noticing. Vexith felt the headache return. You're saying this is common? I'm saying I need those medical records immediately, base, if this is a species-wide trait. The paused. Well, let's confirm first, then panic. Panic. Kale's voice went up half an octave. Figure of speech. This didn't sound convincing. Commander, those records now, please. Vexith sent the authorization request. Somewhere in the bureaucratic machinery of galactic administration, alarms were probably starting to sound. The return to her scanning. Kyle sat very still, looking like she desperately wanted to be anywhere else, and through the lab window station life continued. Humans working alongside 40 other species, touching equipment, walking through corridors, existing, introducing uncertainty wherever they went. The medical records arrived at Oro 600 hours. Vexith knew this because Dr. Thesis immediately summoned him to Lab 7 with a message that read, "Bring someone who understands military implications." He brought Lieutenant Korn and Thestation's security chief, a Velian named Dex, who'd spent 20 years in naval intelligence. They found the CZs surrounded by holographic displays, each one showing different aspects of human anatomy. She looked like she hadn't slept. Quans could go for days without rest, but Thess appeared to be testing that limit. "Gentlemen," Lady gestured at the closest display, "thank you for coming. I'm about to ruin your week." "Get on with it," Dex rumbled. His species didn't believe in pleasantries before 0800 humans. The began are dying. Corrin's antenna flattened. What? Constantly, continuously. From themament, they're born until the moment their biological processes cease entirely. Thess expanded one of the holograms. It showed a skeletal system rotating slowly. This is a human femur. Notice anything unusual? Vexith studied it. It appears normal. Exactly. It appears normal. But watch this. She adjusted the display to show microscopic detail. The bone's surface became visible, and it was covered in tiny fractures. Hundreds of them. Thousands. These are microfractures. They occur whenever humans engage in what they call normal activity. Walking, running, standing for extended periods. The bone breaks constantly, then how? Corrin started. It heals immediately. The breaks trigger osteoblast response, bone-building cells that repair the damage within hours. Buther's the interesting part. The pulled up another image. Each time the bone repairs, it calcifies slightly stronger than before. Humanstant maintains skeletal integrity. They rebuild it continuously. Their anti-resculatin is in a perpetual state of controlled collapse and reconstruction. Dex leaned forward. That's not normal. No species does this, the confirmed, because it's metabolically insane. The energy cost is astronomical. Which brings me to their cardiovasculars. Another display activated. A human heart beating in real-time simulation. This organ, the said, moves approximately 5 L of fluid through a network of vessels totaling over 90,000 km. It does this roughly 100,000 times per day for decades without stopping. Without maintenance, without backup systems. Most species have dual circulatory organs, Corrin noted. Most species are designed by an evolutionary process that apparently hated efficiency. These switch displays again. Now we get to the truly disturbing part, their immune system. The hologram showed white blood cells moving through tissue. Human immunity operates on a principle of aggressive self-destruction. They produce cells specifically designed to attack their own body. These cells patrol constantly, killing anything that seems foreign. Sometimes they kill things that aren't foreign. Sometimes they kill healthy tissue just to practice. The humans call this autoimmune response and consider it a flaw. That sounds like a flaw. Vexith said it sounds like a training regimen. The truth about human biologists' voice went quiet. Their bodies are wargaming against themselves every day, building threats internally so they're prepared for external ones. They've weaponized Zedseler paranoia. Dex's crest rose slightly. Doctor, what does this have to do with shattered Vidian steel? Everything. They opened a new file. I ran full battery of scans on Technician Kale. Neurological, skeletal, circulatory, muscular. Every system showed the same pattern. Constant, low-level electrical activity. Not enough to be dangerous, but enough to be measurable. The human nervous system operates at approximately 70 volts. This creates a bioelectric field around their body. Many species generate bioelectricity, Corin pointed out. Yes, but most species maintain stable fields. Humans fluctuate. Their voltage changes based on stress, fatigue, nutrition, hydration, emotional state, time of day, ambient temperature, barometric pressure. They pulled up a graph showing wild variations. Their bioelectric signature is chaos. And chaos at the quantum level creates something very specific. She pulled up the final display. Mathematical formulas scrolled past, most of which Vexith didn't recognize. Probability interference. They said the human bioelectric field generates microfluctuations in quantum states. Not enough to notice under normal circumstances, but Vidian steel's molecular bonds exist in a state of carefully maintained quantum superposition. It's part of what makes Theloi so strong. The bonds exist in multiple states simultaneously until observed or stressed. Understanding hit Vexith like a cargo loader. The human's field collapsed the superposition. Not collapsed, interfered, introduced noise into a system designed to have an own. The bonds didn't break because of force. They broke because they suddenly existed in only one state instead of many, and that single state couldn't support the applied pressure. They looked at each of them in turn. Kyle Dedant damaged the metal. Her presence made it vulnerable. The lab went silent except for the Humoff ventilation systems. How widespread is this? Dexis confidently. Every human generates this field. The intensity varies based on the factors I mentioned, but it's always present, always active. They're walking probability distortions. Corin's translator chip made a grinding noise. We have 200 humans on this station. The galaxy has 17 billion humans across 400 settled worlds, Vexith added. His voice sounded distant, his own ears. Yes, Thess said simply. And they're all quietly intruding quantum uncertainty into every advanced material they encounter. Yes, Dex stood abruptly. We need to inform command immediately. If this affects Vidian steel, it could affect ship hulls, weapon systems, station, infrastructure. It gets worse. VC's interrupted. How could it possibly get worse? She pulled up Kyle's most recent scan. Because humans don't know they're doing it. This isn't conscious. It's not controllable. It's just what they are. Their bodies are designed to exist at the edge of failure, constantly breaking and repairing, generating electrical noise as a byproduct of systems that should never work. But somehow she zoomed in on the skeletal structure again. They're held together by biology's most aggressive gamble. Make everything just weak enough that it has to keep fighting to stay functional. That's not design, Corinne said. That's disaster waiting to happen. And yet they gestured at the displays. They're here thriving, working alongside AIS. They made it to space using the same bodies that constantly betray them at the cellular level. They built ships, stations, weapons, all while their skeletons were fracturing and their immune systems were staging. Internowers and their bioelectric fields were corrupting quantum states in every advanced material. They touched. Vexith sank into a chair. Someone needs to tell them. Tell them what they asked. That they're walking entropy generators. That their evolutionary path chose controlled chaos over stability. That they're incompatible with half the technology Galaxy considers standard. She deactivated the displays. I've spent 30 years studying materials across 200 species. I've never seen anything like this. They shouldn't work, but they do. And that's significantly more frightening than simple structural failure. Dex moved toward the door. I'm filing a security advisory. Every Humanicupidon needs immediate materials assessment. Make it confidential, Vexith said. If this becomes public knowledge, panic. Yes, I'm aware. Dex paused. What do wettle the humans? They laughed again. That same disturbing laugh from 3 days ago? Tell them the truth. They're made wrong. They'll probably just shrug and ask if it's covered by their medical insurance. She wasn't joking. Outside Lab 7 through the window, Kyle was visible in the corridor. She was talking to another human crew member, laughing about something mundane, living your life, completely unaware that her body was a quantum probability weapon that her species had. Accidentally evolved and then forgotten to mention. Vexith watched her disappear around a corner. Somewhere across 400 worlds, 17 billion humans were doing exactly the same thing, breaking reality. One microspecies-wide implications revealed fracture at a time. The encrypted report left Station Apollon at 0847 hours. By 1200, Vexith had received acknowledgement from Sector Command. By 1600, 3 additional incidents flagged across the communication network, each one marked with the same bureau creativism. Material inconsistency under standard operational parameters. Translation. Things were breaking that had no business breaking, and humans were nearby when it happened. The first came from a mining platform in the Keldries Belt. A drill bit, made from compressed nanoarbon rated for asteroid penetration, had sheared clean through during a routine extraction. The human operating it reported feeling a bit off that day. Subsequent medical scans showed low iron levels and dehydration. The second was a cargo freighter, where reinforced hull plating developed stress fractures around the crew quarters. All 6 humans aboard had recently recovered from a viral infection. Their immune systems were still elevated, still fighting wars against enemies that no longer existed. The third incident didn't involve breakage. It involved a sensor array that simply stopped working when a human technician performed maintenance. No explanation, no error codes. The equipment returned to full function 8 hours after the human left Isto. It had been holding its breath. Vexith read each report twice. Then heiferworded them to Dr. the Seas with a message that said, "This is what you predicted." Her response arrived 4 minutes later. "No, this is worse than I predicted. Schedule a conference call. Include medical engineering and logistics. We need to discuss retrofit protocols." The conference room held representatives from 9 departments. Vexith stood at the head of the table, feeling significantly older than he had a week ago. "Before we begin," he said, "I want to clarify that nothing discussed Hera leaves this room without my explicit authorization." "Understood?" Nods around the table. Worried nods. Dr. Theses appeared via holographic Urjashanti, life-sized and unsettlingly cheerful. "Good morning. I've prepared a presentation titled Why Everything We've Built is Wrong. A retrospective. Questions at the end, please?" Someone groaned. The short version, the continued, is that human biology creates localized quantum interference. This affects any material relying on quantum state bonding, which include approximately 60% of advanced alloys, ceramics, and synthetic composites currently in use. The interference intensifies when humans are stressed, fatigued, ill, or Since humans are frequently all of those things, we have a problem. Chief Engineer Maltris raised a manipulator. Define problem. Every station, ship, and installation with human crew needs immediate materials audit. Any components matter from quantum-dependent substances should be replaced or shielded. This include a show plating, structural supports, energy conduits, data storage arrays, medical equipment, and the paused for effect. Approximately 40% of modern weapon systems. The room erupted. You're talking about refitting the entire human-occupied infrastructure off Galaxy? Someone shouted. Yes, they said calmly. That's economy Kaleem Peslis. Then, accept random catastrophic failures. Your choice. Meltra slammed a manipulator on the O-table. We've had humans in space for 3 decades. If this were a real problem, we'd have noticed before now. You did notice. This countered. You just blamed equipment failure, manufacture index, or operator error. You never looked for a biological cause because we would you? Species don't spontaneously corrupt quantum states just by existing. Except humans dock instantly. You've been attributing their impact to bad luck. Medical Officer Thren spoke up, her voice tight. What do we tell the humans? That they're incompatible with modern technology? They shrugged. Good luck with that conversation. They deserve to know. Then insisted know what? That their bodies are probability weapons. That they've been passively sabotaging advanced systems since first contact. They leaned forward in her projection. They can't fix it. They can't control it. Telling them only creates anxiety over something they're powerless to touch. Better to retrofit quietly and move on. Vexith disagreed, but he understood the logic. Tell 17 billion people they were the retrofit crysostructure dangerous, and you'd create panic. Say nothing, and you'd breed mistrust when the truth inevitably emerged. Lose-lose. There's another option, Corrin said quietly. Everyone turned. We asked them how they've been managing it. Managing what? This K gestured vaguely. Humans, built chips, space stations. They developed quantum computing, nanotech fabrication, all while their biology was sabotaging the process. They must have compensated somehow without realizing it. They went very still. That's actually brilliant. Explain, Vexith said. Humans had these probellums long before joining galactic society, they said slowly. Their technology development would have encountered the same quantum interference we're seeing now, which means their engineering solutions inherently account for it. They built redundancy into everything because they had to, not because they understood why, just because things kept breaking. Maltras caught on. So, human designer systems are already compatible. More than compatible, optimized. They've been engineering around their own biology for centuries without knowing it. They started pulling up files. Look, Athaman spacecraft design. Triple redundant systems, modular components, over-engineered safety margins. We thought they were paranoid. They were compensating. The mood in the room shifted. Not quite relief, but something adjacent, so we don't retrofit everything. Vexith said we adopt human engineering principle for human-occupied spaces. Yes, build looser tolerances, more backups. Except that, some inefficiency is necessary. They smiled that unsettling smile. The galaxy spent millennia perfecting efficiency. Humanity spent millennia working around the fact that they're made of parts that betray them. Guess which philosophy works better when biology meets physics? Later, after the meeting ended and the bureaucratic machinery began its slow grind toward policy change, Vexith found Kale in the station commissary. She was eating something that looked marginally edible and reading a technical manual. He sat down across from her. How are you feeling? She looked up surprised. Fine. Why? Just checking. Hesitated. Can I ask you something? When you design equipment, do you always include backup systems? Usually, yeah, things break. Better to have redundancy. Why do things break? Kyle shrugged. They just do. That's engineering. You plan for failure. Right, Vexus said quietly. Plan for failure. She went back to her manual. Vexus stayed seated, watching her eat, watching her exist. A human doing human things, completely unaware that her species had accidentally solved a problem the rest of the galaxy didn't know existed. They'd evolved on a planet that tried to kill them in bodies that tried to fail, and responded by building everything twice, because of course. Final revelations and conclusions first version wouldn't work. They'd made it to the stars, not despite their limitations, but because the Zelimitations had taught them something the galaxy's more stable species never learned. Nothing lasts. Plan accordingly. Vex's communicator chimed. Another incident report. Human transport ship where the environmental controls had malfunctioned. Then self-corrected using backup systems the original designers had installed just in case. Just in case. He stood, nodded to Kale, and left the commissary. Behind him, she continued reading. Untroubled by questions of quantum mechanics or biological impossibility, just another human technician held together by systems that shouldn't work. Breaking reality one meal at a time. The galaxy's strongest alloy had shattered, and the answer to why was so simple. It was almost insulting. Humans didn't break the metal. The metal was built for a universe that made sense. Humans, unfortunately, were,